When you're starting out a new business, it can be an exciting time, but it can also be a really stressful time. You've got to sort out things like premises, furniture, staff, bank accounts, stock. The list goes on and on. Then you need to throw into the mix a logo design. But do you actually need a logo when you start a business? Now, I've worked with hundreds of businesses and created logos for them, so you may naturally expect me to say, well, of course you need a logo when you start a business. It may surprise you to hear, though, that I don't always think a logo is necessary for certain businesses when they're brand new startups. So, when wouldn't you need a logo? Let's take a look at imaginary Steve, who's starting up a brand new bicycle repair business. Steve wants to start up the bicycle repair business because he feels that his local community is under-catered for in that area. I'd say at this very early stage of Steve's business, it may not be the best idea to invest what little budget he has into having a logo designed. He'd be much better using those finite resources in raising awareness of his service in other ways to let the local area and community know that his business exists. When people see a logo, it's there to trigger an emotion or a memory of a connection to a brand. If Steve's just starting up, there really is no brand for the logo to work with. It's going to take Steve a little bit of time to build up some reputation and let people know that his business is there. So already we can see that a logo at this point is probably not going to be very helpful to Steve. So what about marketing materials? What about Steve raising awareness of his business through flyers and posters? Does he not need a logo to go on there? Well, not really. You don't need to have a logo to put together some effective marketing materials. What you can do is you can pick a nice font, you can choose a colour or colours, and maybe some photographic imagery. The key is that you stick to using those consistently. When you have a logo, the logo is used repeatedly on everything that you produce. This gives consistency because people get used to seeing your logo. If you don't have a logo, you still need to have that visual consistency in all of your marketing materials. So you need to make sure that you stick to using the same font for your business name, the same color palette, and the same types of photographic images in all of your marketing. Now, there are some people who might think, but if I don't have a logo on my marketing materials, it's going to look unprofessional. Well, I think that's nonsense. I've seen hundreds of businesses with logos on their marketing materials and it looks terrible. Having a logo does not ensure that your marketing is going to look professional. You can have very professional looking materials and not have a logo in sight. Having a logo on there does not make your brand any better than someone else's. And why is that? Well, your brand is more than your logo. Your logo is just the tip of the brand iceberg. It's that foundational part of the iceberg that you need to be concerned about. That bit that sits under the water, which is 95% larger than the bit which peaks above, which you could say is your logo or your visual branding. This is the part which is the customer service, the personality, your core vision, your purpose, your mission, the bits that have an emotional attachment. This is what brings people back again and again to your business. I believe that someone buys from your brand because they have an emotional connection to it, not because you have a funny poster. So when should Steve have a logo? Well, after Steve's been running for 12 to 24 months, he'll have built up a reputation for his business. The local area, possibly further afield, will now be aware of the service that he's offering. At this point, Steve will also have a much better idea of what his customer base is looking for. He'll have a much more sound evaluation of his own brand and what his own core values are. It's at this point that Steve is ready to have a logo designed. A logo that will now connect directly to the brand which he's built up over the past year or two for his new business. Steve's just one example of a brand new startup business. It's not going to be the same for everyone. For example, I have worked on new startup businesses where we have gone in and we have created a logo for that business. The business owner had done an amazing amount of research, really understood their audience, and it was a solid foundational base that we had to work with. The difference with Steve is that he was starting a business in an area he knew was underserved, but he didn't have much knowledge and he didn't know exactly what his customer base wanted other than simple bicycle repairs. But his business could actually include more than just that. So it was going to take a year or two to find out what that was. The key thing is to speak to a professional logo designer before you go spending any of your budget. They will help guide you down the path which is right for you, saving you time and money that you may otherwise just be wasting. I hope that example of Steve has made you aware that it's not always right to go headlong straight into a logo when you start your business. There are other options open to you. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like and a thumbs up. Share it with your community on social media. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And until I see you next time, stay creative, folks.